In World War II, after the success of the Normandy landings in June 1944 and the liberation of France in July and August, the Allied advance was halted near Belgium's border with Holland. A plan was made to strike north quickly, avoiding Germany's Siegfried line of defence, and then sweep east into Germany itself. The attack north involved crossing several rivers in this area and capturing 5 bridges. American paratroopers were to capture the first 4 bridges, including the one at Nijmegen, while British and Polish forces were to capture the most northern of the bridges, the one at Arnhem. The biggest airborne attack ever, 1,500 planes and 500 gliders, was launched. Thousands of parachutists were dropped from the planes, while gliders, landing on the dropping zones, delivered further men and some heavy supplies of jeeps and ammunition. From the landing zones, 3 columns set off east towards the Arnhem Bridge, 8 miles away, one column being north of the railway, while the other 2 were on the south. Their aim was to capture 3 bridges: the railway bridge at Oosterbeek, a pontoon bridge, and the Arnhem Road Bridge, the main objective. But the German forces in the Arnhem area were far stronger than expected and included 2 Panzer tank divisions. Mr. Luc Buist tells us the story.
Well, my name is Luc. I'm a Dutchman, and I am interested in the Battle of Arnhem. This started when I was a young boy, and both my parents lived in Oosterbeek during the Battle of Arnhem, and they kind of introduced me into what happened during those days in 1944. My father living in the south part of Oosterbeek and my mother in the north part of Oosterbeek. My father was 9 years of age and my mother was 7 years of age. On the first lift, the 1st Parachute Brigade landed on the landing zones in the area of Wolfhieze, which was west of Arnhem. Total distance roughly 8 to 12 miles from the landing zone to the objective, which was Arnhem Bridge. During the landings, Battalion Kraft, a German school battalion, was having exercises in the area of Wolfhieze. And during these exercises, with their headquarters at Hotel Wolfhieze, Kraft decided to put his heavy machine gun company north of the railway, blocking 1st Battalion's advance in the direction of Arnhem, and they were having the mortar company south of the railway, blocking the advance of the 3rd Battalion into Arnhem. So 1st and 3rd Battalion, they were kind of stopped in the Oosterbeek area. The 2nd Battalion was taking the lower road through Oosterbeek into Arnhem. Their first objective was the railway bridge, which was blown in their face when they tried to capture the bridge. So they couldn't cross the river on this side to pull on an attack to the Arnhem Bridge. So they moved on to the pontoon bridge, but the pontoon bridge had the midsection taken out. And then they pushed on to the Arnhem main bridge, which they were able to help the north end of the bridge.
By the 2nd day, Monday the 18th, soldiers of the 1st and 3rd Battalions, along with other reinforcements, tried to join the 2nd Battalion at the bridgehead. But by then, the Germans had sealed off all approaches to the Arnhem Bridge, and all attempts to reinforce the bridgehead were repulsed. The Allied troops at the bridge numbered only 700 instead of the 9,000 originally planned. Though only lightly armed, they fought off the German tanks for 4 days with incredible tenacity until their ammunition ran out, and they were either killed or surrendered. The Allied advance up the liberated corridor was planned to take 2 days, but it took 6. Though 3 of the 4 bridges on the way were captured intact, one was destroyed and took time to repair. Also, the advancing Allied tanks were knocked out by defending German fire, blocking the road and delaying the column. By the time the column reached Arnhem, it was too late. Meanwhile, back in the Arnhem area, the Allied forces, not able to get to the bridgehead, were forced back into the Oosterbeek area. Mr. Luc Buist takes up his story again.
The air landing brigade, which was guarding the landing zones for the second and third lift, were also moving into their positions in Oosterbeek. In the initial plan, it was their task to guard the west perimeter of Arnhem Bridge. In the end, this plan was not very successful, and the whole division had to withdraw to the south of the river.
Luc, tell me more about the troops coming up from the south.
They got as far as Nijmegen, and the story goes that they stopped north of Nijmegen Bridge for tea.
That's about 15 miles.
Yes, and this is what made the Yanks very, very angry, because they gave a lot of their lives to capture the north end of Nijmegen Bridge. And when the British tanks crossed the bridge, they stopped for a cup of tea, and they didn't push on to the 1st Airborne Division at Oosterbeek. In the end, they did push on, and they made it as far as the city of Driel, or the village of Driel, where the Polish Parachute Brigade, or a part of the Polish Parachute Brigade, landed. And the Polish Parachute Brigade, together with a part of the Wessex Division, tried to cross the river to reinforce the 1st Airborne Division, but it was not enough to really reinforce the troops north of the river. And also, the groups that crossed the river to the north, they were taken prisoner of war. Out of 11,000 men landed north of Arnhem. 9 days later, roughly 2,000 got out. The rest was either killed, wounded, or prisoner of war.
Could they have had the landing area closer to the bridge?
Yes. In the plans that were made before Market Garden, Operation Comet, it was the intention to land gliders south of the Arnhem Bridge, in the fields just south of the bridge. The reason why they didn't take up this plan again later on was because Dalen Airfield was north of Arnhem, and the Royal Air Force was a bit afraid of the anti-aircraft artillery that was on Dalen Airfield. Obviously, Dalen Airfield was bombed before Operation Market Garden, so the flag positions were not very active by the time Operation Market Garden took place. So yes, they could have landed south of the bridge, and in other operations they already made plannings for landing south of the bridge.
And that might have changed the whole...
This might have changed the whole outcome of the operation, absolutely, yes.
How sad.
It is.
The people of Arnhem welcomed the Allied troops when they first arrived, but defeat meant that they were repressed by the Germans even more than before. With the destruction of so many buildings in the fighting, people were left without homes, and that winter many died through starvation. But the people of Arnhem hold no grudges, and through the museum, the cemetery, and various ceremonies, they continue to honour the memory of those who came to rescue their town.
After the war, the remains of the British and Polish soldiers are collected and buried at the airborne cemetery in Oosterbeek. Civilians and liberators shared 9 days of mixed emotions, resulting in a forged bond between them. From September 1945, the local population and the veterans commemorate every year those who gave their lives. Freedom comes at a price, lest we forget.
The whole operation achieved a big salient into Holland, but by failing to capture Arnhem, there was no breakthrough into Germany itself, and the salient remained virtually unchanged until the end of the war 8 months later.